It was a quiet morning in the small town, the kind of morning where the sun barely peeked over the rooftops and the streets were mostly empty, except for the occasional car driving by. At a small gas station on the corner of Main Street, a young worker was finishing up his early shift. He had been working there for a couple of years, and although the pay wasn't much, he liked the routine. The customers were mostly familiar faces, and he had gotten used to chatting with them about the weather, the town, or the small happenings in people's lives. On that particular morning, the bell above the gas station door jingled softly, announcing the arrival of a customer. She was a woman in her early 30s, looking a little tired but carrying herself with quiet determination. She pushed a worn shopping cart filled with a few groceries and had two small children holding onto her hands. Her clothes were simple, slightly faded from frequent washing, and her hair was pulled back in a practical ponytail. She smiled politely at the worker behind the counter, her eyes betraying the exhaustion she tried to hide. She walked up to the pump and began filling her car with gas. The worker noticed that she seemed to be counting her bills carefully, pausing every few seconds to check the amount in her wallet. When she came inside to pay, there was a moment of hesitation in her eyes. She shifted from foot to foot, clutching her purse tightly. "Hi," she said softly. I don't have quite enough for the gas. I'm really sorry, but I'm short $15. The worker looked at her, and in that moment he could see the struggle in her face. He could see the exhaustion of someone who was working hard to provide for her children, someone who was trying to make ends meet but still ended up falling short sometimes. "It's okay," he said after a pause. "You can take it. Just pay me back when you can." Her eyes widened slightly and she shook her head. "No, I can't just take it without paying. That wouldn't be fair to you or the store." The worker smiled kindly. "I insist. You've got kids and I can see you're doing your best. Don't worry about it. Just promise me you'll come back someday to pay it forward when you can." Tears threatened to spill in her eyes. She nodded, barely able to speak. "Thank you. Thank you so much. I don't know how I can repay you. Just take care of your kids. That's enough for me," he replied. She quickly finished paying for her groceries, leaving the gas station with a mix of relief and gratitude. The children tugged at her hand, smiling as she hurried to get back on the road. The worker watched them leave, feeling a strange mix of warmth and worry. He knew he might be in trouble for bending the rules, but at that moment it didn't feel like it mattered. Helping someone in need felt more important than following strict policies. As the mother drove away, the worker returned to his usual tasks, cleaning the counter and restocking some items. But there was a small weight in his chest. He couldn't shake the feeling that someone might notice what he had done, and that the consequences could be serious. He had always believed in doing the right thing, but sometimes doing the right thing came at a cost. About an hour later, the gas station manager arrived, a man who prided himself on rules and order. He had a sharp eye for anything unusual and rarely missed a detail. The moment he stepped into the store, he noticed something was different. The worker looked a little tense, trying to appear calm but failing to hide the faint worry in his eyes. "Can I talk to you for a minute?" the manager asked, motioning toward the office. The worker nodded, following him inside. The office was small and cluttered with receipts and paperwork. The manager closed the door and folded his arms. "I heard that you allowed a customer to leave without paying for gas," the manager said firmly. The worker felt a lump in his throat. He nodded slowly. "Yes, I did. She was a mom with kids and she didn't have enough money. I just wanted to help." The manager's expression didn't soften. "You know that's against company policy. No exceptions. We can't allow that." "I understand," the worker said quietly, "but she really needed it." "I just wanted to do something kind." The manager shook his head. "Intentions don't matter here. Rules are rules." "I'm sorry, but we have to let you go." The worker's heart sank. He had expected some kind of reprimand, maybe a warning, but not this. He felt a mix of sadness and frustration, knowing that his simple act of kindness had cost him his job. He packed his things slowly, feeling the weight of the situation pressing down on him. As he walked out of the office, he passed the shelves he had stocked so many times, the counter he had cleaned countless mornings, and the pumps he had manned through early sunrises and late evenings. Everything seemed suddenly distant, like it belonged to someone else now. Outside, he leaned against his car for a moment, trying to process everything. He had acted from the heart, yet the world didn't seem to care about that. Sometimes being kind felt like a mistake, and it stung more than he could explain. Meanwhile, the mother was driving home, her mind racing. She couldn't stop thinking about the worker who had helped her. She felt a deep sense of gratitude but also a gnawing guilt. He had risked his job for her, and now she worried that her situation had caused someone else to lose their livelihood. She knew she had to find a way to repay his kindness. It wasn't just about money. It was about acknowledging the selfless act that had meant so much to her in a moment of need. She thought about her children and the way their smiles brightened even the hardest days. She promised herself that she would never forget this moment and that she would find a way to make it right. Back at the gas station, the worker walked down the empty streets feeling a strange mix of sadness and hope. He had lost his job, but he hadn't lost his sense of humanity. Helping someone, even if it meant facing consequences, had made him feel alive in a way nothing else could. The world could be harsh and unfair, but small acts of kindness still mattered. He thought about the mother and her children, wondering if they were safe, if they had enough to eat, if they would be okay until their next paycheck. He felt a connection to them, a silent bond created by a simple choice, to care when it mattered most. As the day went on, the streets slowly filled with cars and people going about their routines. Life seemed to move on without noticing his loss or his small act of kindness. Yet in the quiet corners of the town, stories like this lived on, carried by the people whose lives had been touched. He didn't know it yet, but his act of kindness had set something in motion. Sometimes life had a way of returning favors in ways one could never imagine. A single decision, made with a pure heart, could ripple through the world and touch lives far beyond what anyone could see. For now, though, he simply walked home, his thoughts heavy, but his spirit intact. The sun was higher in the sky and the town was alive with the usual sounds of cars, chatter, and distant laughter. He felt small in the grand scheme of things, but he also felt the quiet pride of someone who had chosen to do the right thing when it mattered most. And somewhere, not far away, the mother was thinking the same thing, about the worker, about kindness, and about how a simple act could make a world of difference. After being fired, the worker walked through the town slowly, the weight of what had happened pressing heavily on his shoulders. The bright morning sun now felt harsh against his skin, as if reminding him that life went on whether he was ready for it or not. Each step he took felt heavier than the last. He passed familiar streets and small shops, places he had walked past countless times without giving them a second thought. Now everything seemed different. Every corner, every passerby reminded him of the routine he had just lost. He tried to shake off the feeling, telling himself that this was life. Sometimes good intentions didn't lead to good outcomes. Sometimes doing the right thing carried consequences that felt unfair. He couldn't help but replay the scene at the gas station in his mind. The look of the mother, the tiny smile she gave, and the way her children had clung to her hand. That image warmed him, but it also made the sting of losing his job sharper. The streets were gradually filling with more people now, as the town came alive with the rhythm of daily life. Some were heading to work, others running errands, and a few were simply walking, enjoying the quiet moments of the morning. The worker kept his head down, avoiding eye contact, unsure if he wanted anyone to see the defeat written on his face. He didn't want pity, and he certainly didn't want judgment. He just wanted a quiet moment to gather his thoughts. He found a small bench outside a local bakery and sat down. The smell of fresh bread and pastries wafted through the air, tempting him despite his current mood. He bought a small loaf of bread with the last few dollars he had, and ate slowly, savoring each bite. It wasn't much, but it was enough to give him a moment of comfort. As he sat there, he noticed a few people glance at him, perhaps sensing the sadness he carried. He offered a polite nod, and some nodded back, polite but distant. The worker's mind wandered to his own family. He thought about his parents and siblings and how proud they had always been of him. They had taught him the value of honesty, hard work, and kindness, lessons that now felt like both a blessing and a burden. He had chosen to help someone in need, just as they had taught him, but now he was paying a price. The irony was not lost on him. He had always believed that kindness would eventually lead to good things, but today had proven otherwise. He decided to walk a little further, hoping that movement would ease the heaviness in his chest. The town was familiar. Each street and alleyway a part of his memory, yet today it felt different, almost foreign. People were rushing by, focused on their own lives, unaware of the struggle and sacrifice that had just unfolded at the gas station. The worker wondered if anyone ever noticed these small acts of courage and kindness, or if they were simply lost in the daily grind of life. As he walked, he saw a few children playing near a small park. Their laughter was bright and unrestrained, a sound that reminded him of the children of the mother he had helped. He smiled faintly, imagining the joy in their faces when their mother's worries were momentarily lifted. It was a simple human moment, but it carried a powerful reminder that even small gestures could make a difference in someone's life. That thought gave him a small spark of hope amidst the gloom of his own situation. Despite the weight of his circumstances, the worker knew he couldn't let himself fall too deep into despair. Bills still had to be paid, and he had responsibilities to uphold. He thought about the future, about how he could find another job, and about how he might continue to make a difference in the world, even if it came at a personal cost. His mind was a mixture of worry and determination, a testament to the human spirit that refuses to give up even in the face of hardship. Later in the day, he found himself sitting at a small cafe sipping on a cup of coffee. The warmth of the drink was comforting, a small solace in a day filled with disappointment. He watched the people around him, each absorbed in their own lives. Some were chatting with friends, others were typing away on laptops or reading newspapers. The worker felt a strange connection to them, understanding that everyone had their own battles to fight, their own sacrifices to make. As he sat there, he thought again about the mother and her children. He hoped they were safe, that they had enough to eat, and that they could continue their day without worry. He remembered the grateful look in her eyes and the tiny smile she had given him. That moment, fleeting as it was, reminded him that kindness was never wasted. Even if the world didn't reward it immediately, it planted seeds that could grow in ways one could never anticipate. The hours passed slowly. The worker knew that eventually, he would have to face reality and figure out his next steps. But for now, he allowed himself to simply sit and reflect, to process the emotions of the morning. He thought about what it meant to be human, the balance between compassion and consequence, between giving and losing, between hope and reality. These thoughts were heavy, but they were also grounding, reminding him that life was complex, full of challenges and unexpected turns. By late afternoon, the worker had decided to return home. He walked through the town with a slower pace now, taking in the sights and sounds with a sense of calm. The sun was beginning to dip toward the horizon, casting long shadows on the streets. The warmth of the day was fading, replaced by a cool breeze that brushed against his face. He felt tired, but there was also a quiet sense of peace in knowing that he had acted according to his values, even if it had come at a cost. On his way back, he passed the gas station once more. It looked the same as it had that morning, ordinary and unremarkable, yet it held a story within its walls that few would ever know. He thought about the manager, about the rules, and about the rigid structures that often prevented people from acting with kindness. And yet he also thought about the mother, about her children, and about the ripple effect of a single selfless act. That contrast lingered in his mind, a reminder of the complexities of life. As evening approached, the worker reached his small apartment. It was modest but cozy, a place where he could rest and recharge. He carried the weight of the day with him, but he also carried a sense of quiet pride. He had chosen to do the right thing, even when it was difficult. And though the world might not have acknowledged his actions yet, he believed that one day, the kindness he had shown would find its way back to him in some form. He sat down at his small kitchen table, looking out the window at the fading light. The town was settling into the evening, the streets quieter now, the bustle of the day slowly fading. He thought about the mother and her children once more, imagining them safe at home, sharing a meal and feeling the warmth of family. That image gave him comfort, a reminder that even small gestures could have a profound impact. As he prepared a simple dinner for himself, he reflected on the lessons of the day. Life was unpredictable, filled with moments of both hardship and hope. He had learned that kindness sometimes came at a personal cost, but it was never wasted. Every act of compassion, no matter how small, had the potential to touch lives in ways one could never foresee. That thought settled in his heart, giving him a sense of purpose and a renewed determination to face whatever challenges lay ahead. Later that night, as he lay in bed, he replayed the events of the day in his mind. He remembered the mother's eyes, the children's smiles, and the quiet dignity with which she had handled her difficult situation. He remembered his own decision to help, the fear and uncertainty that followed, and the bittersweet feeling of having lost his job. And yet, amidst all of that, he felt something stronger, a quiet, unwavering belief in the power of human kindness. He knew that the story was far from over. Somewhere out there, the mother and her children were continuing their lives, carrying with them a small piece of his kindness, and somewhere perhaps the world would respond in kind, returning the favor in ways he could not yet imagine. That thought gave him hope, a spark of light in the darkness of disappointment, reminding him that even in difficult times, goodness could prevail. And so, the worker drifted off to sleep that night, carrying with him the lessons of the day. That compassion mattered, that courage sometimes came in quiet forms, and that the world, despite its challenges, had a way of rewarding those who chose to act with kindness. He did not know what tomorrow would bring, but he felt ready to face it, armed with the knowledge that even small acts of goodness could create ripples far beyond what the eye could see. After leaving the gas station, the mother drove slowly through the town, her mind racing with worry and guilt. She kept glancing at her children in the back seat. They were quietly playing with a small toy each had brought along, their innocent chatter filling the car with light sounds of joy. She loved them more than anything, but at that moment she felt the crushing weight of responsibility. $15 might seem small to some, but to her, it had been the difference between keeping her car fueled and being stranded, between making it to work on time and losing another day's wages. Even though she had received help, she could not shake the feeling that someone had paid a price on her behalf. The young gas station worker had let her go without paying, an act of kindness that had cost him his job. She thought about his face, the calm but firm look in his eyes, and how he had assured her it was okay. He had seen her struggle, understood her situation, and chosen compassion over rules. She had felt relief and gratitude in that moment, but now that relief was mixed with guilt. The drive home was quiet. Her children occasionally asked questions about simple things, the birds outside, the cars passing by, but she struggled to respond fully, her mind consumed with thoughts of the worker and what had happened. She wanted to find a way to repay him, but she had so little herself. Her paycheck barely covered the rent, the bills, and the food for the week. Saving or giving back to a stranger felt impossible, yet she could not stop thinking about the kind gesture, the fact that someone had believed in doing the right thing without expecting anything in return. Once home, she parked the car and helped the children inside. Their small apartment was modest with only the essentials, but it was a place full of love. She cooked a simple meal for them, making sure they had enough to eat before she sat down herself. As she looked at them, she felt both relief and anxiety. Relief because they were safe and cared for. Anxiety because of the world outside that was often unfair and unkind. She wished she could shield them from every hardship, every disappointment, every moment where someone might need help and not receive it. After the children finished eating, she put them to bed. Their tired little faces relaxed into sleep, unaware of the adult worries that weighed heavily in their lives. She watched them for a long time, thinking about the worker again. How could someone show such selflessness without expecting anything in return? How could he risk losing his job just to help someone he barely knew? She felt humbled and inspired, but also painfully aware of the reality of life. The reality that good people often paid a price for doing what was right. Unable to rest herself, she returned to the living room and opened her laptop. She began searching for ways to find the worker, hoping she could somehow repay him. She typed the name of the gas station and tried to contact anyone who might know him. She wrote emails and messages, explaining the situation and expressing her desire to show her gratitude. Hours passed, and with each passing moment she felt both hope and frustration. It was as if the world was holding her good intentions at a distance, testing her patience and resolve. Her phone buzzed and she glanced at the screen. It was a message from a neighbor asking if she and the children were okay. She smiled faintly, typing back a quick response, but her mind was still elsewhere, focused on the young man who had chosen kindness over self-interest. She thought about what he might be doing now. Was he at home, worried about bills? wondering if he had made the right choice. The thought made her chest tighten. She wished she could ease his burden even a little, just as he had eased hers. The next morning she awoke early, determined to keep looking for him. She packed breakfast for the children and got them ready for school. As she walked them to the bus stop, she replayed the encounter in her mind. She remembered every word he had said, every gesture of reassurance. She realized that in one brief moment, he had reminded her that humanity and compassion still existed in a world that often seemed harsh and unforgiving. After sending the children off to school, she returned home and sat by the window, thinking about what had happened. She considered telling someone about it, sharing the story of the worker's kindness with friends, family, or even social media, hoping that the world might somehow acknowledge his actions. But she hesitated. Part of her feared that recognition might not come, that even if it did, it might not reach him in time to make a difference. Still, the thought of remaining silent felt wrong. She needed to find a way to make his kindness matter, to let him know that what he had done had not gone unnoticed. As the day passed, she went about her chores and errands, all the while thinking of him. She drove carefully, mindful of every traffic light, every stop, every little delay that might hinder her plans. She felt urgency in her movements, as though time itself were conspiring to keep her from fulfilling this small but meaningful mission. Each phone call she made, each message she sent, felt like a step closer to justice, to recognition, to returning the kindness that had been shown to her. By mid-afternoon, she began to worry again. What if he had already moved on? What if he had found another job, or had given up entirely on the idea of being recognized for his good deed? The thought made her feel anxious and restless. She paced through her small apartment, thinking of ways to track him down, to make contact, to express her gratitude in a tangible way. She had very little to give, but she wanted the gesture to matter, to reflect the value of what he had done for her and her children. While she was thinking, a memory flashed through her mind. The gas station worker had looked so calm, so certain when he told her it was okay. There had been no hesitation, no doubt in his voice. That certainty had given her comfort, reassurance, and hope in a moment of stress. She realized that it wasn't just the act of giving her free gas that mattered. It was the way he had treated her with dignity, respect, and empathy. That small but powerful human connection was something she wanted to honor, to show that kindness did not go unnoticed. As evening approached, she decided to take a walk. She needed to clear her mind and think more clearly. The streets were quieter now, bathed in the soft glow of streetlights. The children's laughter from earlier in the day lingered in her memory, a reminder of why she was so determined to make this right. She walked past the gas station once again, looking at the pumps and the small store with a sense of nostalgia and gratitude. It had become more than a place to fill her car. It was now a symbol of human kindness, of choices made from the heart rather than rules. She sat on a nearby bench thinking deeply. What if someone noticed his actions and wanted to reward him? What if life had a way of returning good deeds in unexpected ways? The thought made her heart lift slightly. She had no control over how the world would respond, but she could keep hope alive. She could continue her search, continue trying to express her gratitude, and trust that the universe had a way of balancing acts of goodness. As night fell, she returned home and tucked herself into bed, exhausted but determined. Her children were asleep, dreaming their innocent dreams, and she watched them for a moment, thinking about the man who had made her day a little brighter and her burdens a little lighter. She whispered a quiet thank you, not just to him, but to the idea that people could still be kind in a world that often demanded more than it gave. She resolved that tomorrow she would continue her search. She would find the worker, or at least make sure that his actions were known to someone who could recognize them. She didn't have to wait for the world to notice. She could be the one to carry the message, the one to honor the small act that had meant so much. Throughout the night she thought about the possibilities. Maybe someone else would hear about what he had done. Maybe someone influential, someone with the ability to change his circumstances. Maybe somehow the act of kindness that had seemed so small would grow into something far larger, something that would not only reward him, but also remind others that compassion mattered. And so, the mother drifted off to sleep, holding on to hope like a lifeline. She didn't know how or when it would happen, but she believed that good deeds, even when unrecognized at first, had a way of finding their place in the world. She believed that the worker's kindness would not go unnoticed forever, and she vowed to do whatever she could to make sure that it would be acknowledged, honored, and appreciated. The next day began like any other, but for the gas station worker, there was a sense of heaviness lingering in the air. He had returned to the streets looking for temporary odd jobs to make ends meet. Each task he took was small, helping someone carry groceries, cleaning a yard, or delivering packages. But it was something, and it kept him moving forward. The incident at the gas station still haunted him. He replayed the mother's face in his mind, her grateful smile and the children holding her hands. It was a memory both comforting and painful. He stopped at a small cafe to grab a cup of coffee, needing a brief rest. The place was quiet, filled with a few people working on laptops, chatting softly or reading. He took a seat near the window, watching the world move along outside. Cars passed by, people hurried to appointments, and life continued in its usual rhythm, almost indifferent to the struggles and sacrifices of a single human being. He sighed, feeling the tension in his shoulders. Life seemed to test the kind-hearted more than anyone else, and today, that truth weighed on him heavily. As he sipped his coffee, he noticed a sleek, black car pull up outside the gas station he had been fired from. It was unlike anything he had seen in his town, expensive, polished, with a powerful presence. He watched as a well-dressed person stepped out, moving with confidence and authority. There was something about the way they walked that drew attention. People in the nearby streets paused to glance at the car and the person. It was clear that this was someone who commanded respect, and perhaps had the power to change things. Curiosity got the better of him, and he decided to walk toward the gas station to see what was happening. As he approached, he noticed the manager stepping out to greet the visitor. They exchanged words quickly, and the manager seemed slightly nervous, as if unsure about the situation. The worker stayed back, keeping a careful distance, observing silently. The visitor entered the store, and the manager quickly explained something to the clerk on duty. The worker could not hear most of the conversation, but he caught a few words that made his heart skip a beat. "Who helped the woman yesterday?" the visitor asked. The clerk pointed toward the parking lot. The worker felt a rush of anxiety and anticipation. Could this be about him? The visitor turned and looked directly at him, a warm and genuine smile spreading across their face. "You," they said. "You're the one who helped the mother yesterday, aren't you?" The worker nodded slowly, unsure of what to expect. He had not seen this person before, and there was something in their tone that made him both nervous and hopeful. "I've been told what you did," the visitor continued. "You helped someone when they were in need without expecting anything in return. That kind of kindness is rare, and it should be recognized." The worker's eyes widened. He had never imagined that anyone would notice, let alone reward, his simple act of compassion. He felt a mix of disbelief, joy, and relief. I just did what I thought was right," he stammered. The visitor's smile deepened. "And that's exactly why it matters. Your actions made a real difference in someone's life, and we want to make sure you are recognized for it." The worker felt a lump in his throat. He had been worried, sad, and uncertain, and now all of a sudden a wave of hope and gratitude washed over him. The visitor explained that they had a personal connection to the mother he had helped. She had shared her story, describing how he had gone out of his way to show compassion when she had been struggling. That story had touched the visitor deeply, and they had come to the gas station specifically to find him. The visitor continued, explaining that they wanted to offer a meaningful reward. They weren't just talking about money. They wanted to provide opportunities, support, and acknowledgement for the good-hearted choices he had made. They offered him a position in their company, a role where he could continue helping people and making a positive impact on the world. They also offered immediate financial assistance to ease the burden of the past few weeks and to help him rebuild his life after the setback at the gas station. The worker felt overwhelmed. He had never expected anything like this. His simple act of kindness, something he had done without thought of reward, was now being recognized in a way he could never have imagined. He thought about his family, about the struggles he had endured, and about the small moments of hope that had carried him through difficult times. He realized that sometimes life had a way of returning good deeds in unexpected ways, often when one least expected it. The visitor smiled and handed him an envelope. Inside were documents, a letter of acknowledgement, and the first installment of financial support. The worker carefully opened the letter, reading the words slowly. It spoke of courage, empathy, and the rare quality of someone who acted selflessly in a world that often rewarded selfishness. He felt tears prick at the corners of his eyes, a mixture of relief, joy, and gratitude. As the conversation continued, the visitor shared more about the mother and her children, emphasizing how much his simple act had meant to them. They explained how his kindness had lifted a burden that seemed insurmountable to her at the time, how it had allowed her to continue her day with a sense of hope and dignity. The worker listened, feeling a deep connection to the story and realizing the impact of his actions. Other customers and staff watched the scene unfold, some with curiosity, others with admiration. The worker realized that kindness, even when small, could ripple outward in ways that touched many lives. The visitor's words reinforced the idea that genuine compassion mattered, that actions driven by empathy could lead to unexpected and meaningful outcomes. The worker felt a renewed sense of purpose. He realized that losing his job at the gas station had been a painful experience, but it had also set the stage for something greater. Sometimes life required patience, resilience, and trust in the unseen consequences of one's actions. He understood now that his choice to help the mother had not gone unnoticed and that the world, in its own way, had found a way to honor him for it. The visitor offered to introduce him to people who could help him further, mentors who valued empathy and kindness in their work. They spoke of opportunities to grow, to learn, and to make a positive difference in the lives of others. The worker felt a sense of excitement he hadn't felt in months, a feeling that perhaps his future was brighter than he had imagined. He looked around, taking in the scene at the gas station one last time. The pumps, the counter, the shelves, they all seemed ordinary, yet they had been the setting for something extraordinary. A small act of kindness had created a chain of events that no one could have predicted, a reminder that even in the most ordinary places, human compassion could shine brightly. The visitor shook his hand firmly, a gesture filled with respect and acknowledgement. "Remember this," they said. "Your actions matter. Never stop choosing kindness even when it seems difficult. The world needs more people like you." The worker nodded, feeling the words resonate deeply. He thought about the mother, about her children, and about the countless small acts of kindness that went unnoticed every day. He realized that while recognition was meaningful, the true value of his actions had always been in the impact they had on someone else's life. And now the recognition was simply an added layer, a tangible way of saying that good deeds mattered, that compassion had a place in the world. As the visitor drove away in the sleek black car, the worker felt a sense of peace and gratitude wash over him. He understood that life could be unpredictable, sometimes cruel, sometimes generous, but always full of opportunities to do good. He resolved to carry forward the lesson he had learned, that even small, selfless actions could ripple outward, touching lives in ways one could never fully predict. He stayed for a moment, looking at the gas station and thinking about the future. He felt ready to embrace it, to take the opportunities offered, and to continue acting with empathy and courage. The events of the past day had taught him that while life could be unfair, kindness had a way of finding its own reward, often in the most unexpected ways. By the time he returned home that evening, the worker felt lighter, not just in spirit but in heart. He knew that the challenges of life would continue, but he also knew that the power to make a difference, to act with integrity and compassion, rested within him. That knowledge, more than anything else, gave him strength, hope, and a renewed sense of purpose. He sat down with a cup of tea, reflecting on everything that had happened. He thought about the mother, the children, and the visitor who had recognized his actions. He realized that while the road ahead might still have obstacles, he now had the encouragement and support to navigate it with courage and kindness. Life, he understood, had a way of rewarding those who stayed true to their values, even in moments of difficulty, and as night fell, he drifted into sleep with a quiet smile on his face, comforted by the knowledge that good deeds, no matter how small, could change lives, not just for the person receiving them, but also for the one giving them. The worker woke up the next morning with a renewed sense of purpose. The events of the previous day were still fresh in his mind, the visit from the visitor, the acknowledgement of his actions, and the opportunities now available to him. But he knew that recognition alone wasn't enough. He wanted to make the most of it, not just for himself, but for the people he had impacted, especially the mother and her children. The thought of them filled him with warmth and motivation. He realized that their gratitude had been the true spark behind everything that was now happening. He spent the morning preparing for the new opportunities. He dressed neatly, something he hadn't done in a while, and made sure he looked presentable and confident. It wasn't just about appearances. It was about stepping into a new chapter of his life with pride and integrity. As he walked toward the visitor's office, he reflected on the journey that had brought him here. He remembered the small, quiet moments at the gas station, the mother explaining her situation, the children holding her hands, the simple decision to let her go without paying. That small choice had changed the course of his life, and now it had the potential to change his future in ways he could never have imagined. When he arrived at the visitor's office, he was greeted warmly. The visitor smiled, shaking his hand firmly. "Welcome," they said. "Today is the beginning of a new chapter. We believe in your potential, and we want to help you grow, not just professionally, but as a person who can continue spreading kindness and compassion in the world." The worker felt a lump in his throat. He had always believed in doing the right thing, even when it came at a personal cost, but he had never expected such recognition. It was humbling and uplifting at the same time. He realized that integrity and kindness had their own rewards, often hidden, waiting for the right moment to appear. Over the next few hours, he was introduced to a team that valued empathy, integrity, and hard work. They explained his responsibilities, emphasizing how his role would allow him to continue helping others, to make meaningful contributions that went beyond simple tasks. For the first time in months, he felt a sense of stability, a feeling that he was in a place where his values and actions were appreciated, not just tolerated. While he settled into his new routine, he couldn't stop thinking about the mother. He wondered how she and her children were doing, whether they had noticed the change in his life, and if they knew how much their gratitude had meant to him. He decided to reach out, hoping to share the news and express his thanks for allowing him to make a difference in their lives, even in a small way. He sent a message to her, carefully choosing his words. He wanted her to know that her situation had touched him deeply, that her gratitude had inspired actions that were now shaping a brighter path for him. He didn't expect a response immediately, but the act of sending the message felt important. It was a way to close the circle of kindness, to let her know that her story had mattered, and that the impact of his actions had not gone unnoticed. Meanwhile, the mother received the message while preparing dinner for her children. She paused, reading the words slowly, feeling a wave of relief and joy wash over her. The young man she had worried about, the one who had risked his job to help her, was now being recognized and rewarded. She felt a profound sense of gratitude, knowing that his life was improving because of the choices he had made with a pure heart. She shared the news with her children, who smiled and cheered, proud that someone who had helped their family was now being acknowledged in a meaningful way. Over the following days, the worker began his new role, quickly learning the responsibilities and embracing the opportunities it provided. He found joy in helping others, mentoring those who were struggling, and creating a positive impact wherever he could. Each act of kindness, each decision to go beyond what was expected, reinforced his belief that integrity and empathy were not just moral choices, but tools to shape a better world. The visitor kept in touch, offering guidance and encouragement. They reminded him that his journey had only just begun, and that the true reward of his actions would come from the difference he continued to make in the lives of others. The worker took these words to heart, dedicating himself to the principle that every small act of kindness mattered, even if it seemed unnoticed in the moment. One afternoon, he received an unexpected call. It was the mother. She wanted to thank him personally, to tell him how much his actions had meant to her family. They arranged to meet at a small cafe in town. When he saw her and her children, his heart lifted. They were smiling, happier than he had seen them before. The children ran to him, hugging him tightly, their small hands full of warmth and gratitude. The mother spoke softly, her voice filled with emotion. "You don't know how much you helped us. That day when you let us go without paying, you gave me hope. You reminded me that people care, that kindness still exists. I wanted you to know that it mattered and that it changed my life in ways I can't even describe." The worker felt tears sting his eyes. I just did what I thought was right," he said quietly. "I never expected anything in return. I'm just glad you and your children are okay." She shook her head, smiling. "No, you don't understand. You did more than just help us with gas. You showed compassion when it mattered most. You risked your job for someone else, and that is rare. That is why your actions are so important. That's why you deserve everything that's happening to you now. They spent a few hours together, sharing stories, laughter, and reflections on how small acts could create big changes. The worker felt a sense of closure, knowing that the circle of kindness had come full circle. The mother's gratitude had inspired recognition, and the recognition had reinforced the idea that goodness mattered in the world. After the meeting, he returned home with a light heart. He reflected on the journey, the moment he chose to help, the consequences he faced, the unexpected reward, and the connection with the family he had helped. He realized that life was unpredictable, filled with challenges and surprises, but that integrity and compassion were constants that could guide anyone through even the darkest times. The mother, too, felt a sense of peace. She watched her children playing in the living room, feeling reassured that the world still had people willing to act with kindness and courage. She felt inspired to pay it forward in her own small ways, to teach her children the value of empathy, and to continue believing in the goodness of others. The memory of the gas station worker became a lesson in humanity, a story she would carry with her and share whenever she could. In the weeks that followed, the worker's life continued to improve. He embraced the opportunities, worked diligently, and maintained the same integrity that had guided him from the start. He remembered the day at the gas station, the moment of hesitation, the decision to help, and the ripple effect it had created. Each day he reminded himself that even small choices made with a pure heart could lead to life-changing outcomes. The mother's family also flourished. The simple act of kindness had given them not just immediate relief, but a renewed sense of hope and trust in humanity. They faced their daily challenges with courage, inspired by the knowledge that the world still held compassionate people willing to step in and make a difference. The bond between them and the worker, though brief in interaction, remained strong, a reminder that genuine human connections could transcend circumstances and bring meaning to life. Months later, the worker reflected on everything that had happened. He thought about the struggles, the losses, the fear, and the uncertainty he had felt. But he also thought about the kindness, the recognition, the new opportunities, and the connection with the family he had helped. He realized that life had a way of rewarding those who acted with empathy and courage, often in ways that exceeded expectations. He continued his work, helping others whenever he could, mentoring, and spreading kindness in every way possible. The memory of the mother and her children remained a guiding force, reminding him that even small, simple choices could have profound effects on the lives of others. He embraced this lesson fully, carrying it into every interaction, every decision, every day of his life. In the end, both the worker and the mother understood a simple truth: that kindness mattered, that compassion had power, and that life, though unpredictable, often returned goodness in ways one could never anticipate. The story of that day at the gas station became a lesson in humanity, a tale of courage, integrity, and the enduring impact of selfless acts, and so, life moved forward for them both, filled with hope, gratitude, and the quiet confidence that even in the smallest gestures, there was the power to change the world. Their lives were forever intertwined by that one moment of choice, a reminder that empathy and kindness were forces stronger than hardship, capable of shaping destinies and touching hearts in ways that nothing else could.